Since January of 2020 in California, there have been two sets of legislation that have dealt with the development of more housing units in the city of San Diego. In this video, we'll review the proposed amendments for the development of accessory dwelling units and how that implementation interacts with Senate Bill 9. Hey, if we haven't met, my name is Doty. I'm a full-time investor out of San Diego. I created this channel to document the journey as I go from a full-time W-2 employee as a medical device sales rep to a full-time real estate investor developer. If you're interested in seeing what that first year out of the W-2 world looks like, hit the subscribe button and I'll keep you updated as I come up with new adventures on my journey. All right, so let's get started with a little bit of context related to housing in California. In the decade from 2010 to 2020, the population in California increased by 6.5%, which is slightly below the national average, but that's still 2.4 million people more that need a place to live. Despite recent migration trends moving out of California since the pandemic started, the state is still short some 3.5 million homes for the people who currently live here. On a local level in San Diego, by 2029, we need to more than double the housing production that was created over the previous decade. The goal from 2010 to 2020 was to build 88,000 units, and we fell short by 40,000 units. We only built 49,000 units from 2010 to 2020, and now we need 108,000 units by 2029. So we need to more than double the production. So the population is growing and we're not keeping up with demand. But where are we going to build this housing? San Diego is really landlocked. You've got the Pacific Ocean to the west, mountains and deserts to the east. Up north, you run into Camp Pendleton, and then you have the Mexican border on the south. So the only place you can really build in San Diego is within, and that's where ADUs come into play. They use the existing infrastructure, and because of that, they're supposed to be more cost-effective to build. So for the sake of being thorough, what is an ADU? ADUs go by a lot of different names. They're casitas, in-law suites, secondary units. In Hawaii, they're called ohanas. They're basically an independent living facility for one or more people. In San Diego, they range in size from 150 square feet all the way up to 1,200 square feet, but they can't be sold separately. They're part of the primary unit, but they can be rented, and they can also be rented without being owner-occupied. Because they're within existing neighborhoods, they're supposed to be closer to transit, jobs, education, and other economic opportunities for all people. And the end goal with all ADU development programs is to help with the housing shortage. With all this backdrop in mind, in the years leading up to December of 2020, the state of California passed Government Code 65852-2, and then communicated that out to the masses through the newly formed California ADU Handbook. The regulations became effective in January of 2021. With this legislation, accessory dwelling units were ministerially approved by the state. There were less restrictive parking requirements. HOAs were no longer allowed to prohibit accessory dwelling units in their communities. The ADUs could not be sold separately from the primary dwelling. And then local cities had to create incentives for the development of affordable units in addition to allowing them in general. So the new code formalized the fact that California is in a housing crisis and that ADUs are an essential component of bringing new housing into local communities. However, the state passed the overarching law. It was still up to the local communities to create their development standards. All of the specifics around the development of these new units would be governed by the local municipalities. And that's where we get into the San Diego Code, which started with IB 400. Information Bulletin 400 was the city of San Diego's early communication to the public on how they were going to regulate ADUs in the city of San Diego. It came out at the same time as the ADU Handbook in December of 2020, and it was enforceable and it was effective starting January of 2021. The key section of IB 400 was on page 4, section J, which was the ADU bonus program. The bonus ADU program created a huge opportunity to create more units as long as you were sticking with affordable units and doing it near mass transit. So those were the first two pieces of legislation that passed in early 2021. The next two pieces were Senate Bill 9, which has widely been called the Duplex Bill, and then the implementation of that bill by the local municipality, which the city of San Diego is calling the Housing Action Package. The governor signed Senate Bill 9 in September of 2021. It's widely been called the Duplex Bill because what it does is allow homeowners to split their lots and create a total of 4 units where traditionally there had only been one single-family house. There's a stipulation that requires the owner to stay in the property for 3 years, but at the end of that 3 years, they could sell the lots separately or keep them as rental units. The bill is controversial because it increases density in areas that haven't traditionally welcomed more housing units. Which brings us to San Diego's Housing Action Package. This is the City of San Diego's implementation plan for SB 9, and it also rolls in some amendments to the earlier adopted ADU laws. Towards the end of last year, the Development Office created a presentation about what they're presenting to the City Council and the Planning Commission, and it had 3 big takeaways for me. The first takeaway was that there's going to be a tree canopy requirement based on lot size and the number of units that you're creating, which I think is great for San Diego. The second piece is they're going to modify the setbacks and the height requirements based on the zoning of the adjacent lots. And then the third one was huge. The third one was that you can't combine SB 9 and the ADU regulations. I looked at that presentation and thought you would be able to split the lot, add 2 units on each one of those lots, and then build an ADU and a junior ADU for a total of 4 units on each one, and that's not the case. You can't combine the two regulations. So the maximum is 4 units when you do a lot split. In the presentation, they gave a bunch of examples on different ways that you can do that, and I'll link to that presentation below. So after doing all this homework on SB 9 and the new ADU regulations, I want to share some takeaways as well as the rationale for the types of projects that I'm going to go after this year. First off, I don't know if SB 9 is even going to work for me. There is an owner-occupied stipulation where you have to sign an affidavit that says you're going to live in the property for 3 years after you do the development. Yes, you can max it out at 4 units. Yes, you can split the lot and sell them separately, but the 3 years of owner occupancy probably isn't going to work for me. However, I do think I'm going to be able to utilize some of the new regulations surrounding ADU laws. You're building affordable units within a transit priority area on a multifamily lot. You have an unlimited number of units that you can build as long as you're sticking within the Florida area ratio. So with all that being said, those are the kinds of projects that I'll be looking for in the next year. Thanks for watching the video, and we will see you on one of those projects.